Good afternoon. It's a Sunday Arvo here, and I'm at long last doing another live in our Joyflu group. So hello, if you're checking in, say g'day, give us a like. It's been a nice dreary old weekend in Melbourne here, so I've had a little bit of an absence in posting on social media for a little bit, so just to sort of fill you in, what happened, we had effectively lockdown, and then I've been working from home. I effectively work 3 jobs, so despite everything, I've been as busy as normal, and gradually I've been going back into the workplace. So for one of my jobs, I've been back in the workplace for a couple of weeks. For job number 2, we commence back to face-to-face training as of tomorrow, so I'm kind of back to being out in the world full-time, 5 days a week, effectively full-time from tomorrow. So what's been interesting, and one of the reasons why I have a couple of reasons why I've been a bit quiet. First of all, I like to just periodically take breaks from social media. I did a big experiment where I went off all social media 100% back in February, prior to COVID stuff, and I really noticed some big differences and some benefits with doing that. And I guess what I've sort of worked out is that as much as I love social media, it's a brilliant tool for promotion and connecting and whatnot, that it also has a whole bunch of other things that are not necessarily beneficial for me. So it's good just to take breaks. And so that's one of the reasons for my my silence, my infrequent updates in Joyflu. The other thing, so one of the things that sort of really happened with going into lockdown and just working from home and no socializing with people face to face, is that I really embedded some self-connection practices for myself, and these are things that I would do periodically for myself prior to lockdown, on and off, but not consistently. Okay, despite knowing that they're all beneficial. So these are things like meditating, just being present, embodiment, so Tantra-based practices as well, everything just to do with connecting with self and honing, the benefits of this are, honed intuition and being able to tap into our wisdom, body wisdom centers, which incredible benefits, right? And so with easing of restrictions and going back into the workplace and being able to see people again, I actually had quite an adverse reaction to the lockdown restrictions being eased, because I'd found this beautiful place with myself, and my concern is that if life goes back to the way that it was pre me dedicating more time and effort to my self-connection practices, is that I was going to lose that. And so as a result, I really slowed my my easing of restrictions. Like I had to go back to my work environment. However, I kept my social contact to immediate family predominantly, and just really gradually eased back into society. And so what I wanted to talk about is what the newfound awareness that, first of all, finding this presence with myself, and then what it's been like going back into being around people and what happens, or what I observed in myself with this. So first of all, so effectively, what is presence? Okay, and I think Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, is probably a really, really great resource. It's one of my, top 5 books that I sort of have benefited from myself with listening to or reading. I've read it and I've listened to it numerous times. And so it's really being able to bring attention and awareness to where I am in any moment, as opposed to, and this is very, very prominent for me, is the mind sort of being off on to-do lists or future, daydreaming about my future, or thinking about things that happened last week, and not actually sort of being consciously present and aware as to where I am right now. Another way of talking about presence is, well, actually feeling being in my body. And I've talked about this in, I think, the Feeling Feelings Challenge. I talk about how for a lot of us, we're not consciously in our bodies, in that our mind, our awareness is actually physically somewhere else. And this is pretty common. Trauma is something, and it might be physical trauma, it might be mental trauma, that pushes us to not physically want to be consciously aware in our bodies. And there's a whole range of things that you can do to bring yourself back into your body. And there's lots of benefits that are had with being in our bodies. Life actually feels better when we're in our bodies, and just simple little things like having a glass of water and being really present to how that water feels, what it's like when the water goes in my mouth and down my throat, and feeling it in my body. There's actually a lot of pleasure to be had in a lot of very simple things just by being present and in my body. And yeah, so because I was doing daily practices that were increasing my presence, it increases my, as I said, intuition, having a really powerful awareness about what's going on for myself at any time. And I was just terrified, absolutely terrified of losing that newfound connection with myself the moment that I was going to be around people. And so the nice thing is, now that I've reintroduced myself back to the world, is that yes, I still do lose my presence in the moment quite often, and it might even be that I lose it for a couple of hours. However, what I noticed, and this is where the gift was, is that I was able to notice when I wasn't being present with myself anymore. And what I have observed is that what happens is that I go and I flip into presentation mode, in that it's starting to think about the point that I want to get across and how I can best get it across to whoever the person is that I'm hanging out with, or the group of people that I'm hanging out with. Presentation mode, Philip Shepherd speaks to this very well in another one of my top 5 reads, and that is Radical Wholeness. He talks about presentation mode, and what's been really interesting is the more present that I have been in myself, is that I've started to now notice when people I'm interacting with, I can actually tell when they're in presentation mode. And I'm going to just say that the majority of us flip into presentation mode whenever we're interacting with people. Okay. And the more present I am with myself, the more I can pick that up in other people. I'm like, oh, they're not really present. They're just, their awareness is on me and influencing me or directing me to either impress me or get their point across. I could probably sit down and actually flesh that out a bit more and go, well, what are all the aspects of presentation mode? Because now that I can sort of see the flip side of it, it's really interesting. I could probably break that down and analyze it a lot more. So yes, I do flip out of presence and go into presentation mode. And as a result, realizing that, which is just realizing it in itself, is a huge improvement on where I probably was, let's just say February. And the beautiful thing is that I don't just realize at the end of interacting with someone. Sometimes I realize in the process of interacting with someone, and just in the realization, that's actually bringing myself back to presence, which is really cool. Because I guess another word for presence would also be grounded. And this is a really great place to be when you're doing things like training or speaking and presenting. When we're coming from a grounded, present perspective, we're more embodied in what it is that we're saying, and therefore we're more influential. And energetically, and there's experiments that we can do around this to prove the point, is that the person who is the most present and the most grounded wins, in that their intention is what drives energetically the group. Okay, so that they're more likely to win, to get their intention fulfilled. If I'm in just presentation mode and just not really here, maybe my consciousness is somewhere else, well then I'm less likely to actually achieve what it is that I want when I'm speaking. And so that's been the last month, 6 weeks thereabouts, is just experimenting with, all right, I've become more present in myself when I'm on my own. How's this going to look when I start interacting with people? Okay, and so it wasn't as detrimental as what I thought it was going to be. I didn't just lose presence altogether. It's that, yes, I would lose it, but I would be aware of losing it. And so that's been a huge jump in my skill set and capabilities in interacting with people generally, which is really cool. And I'm so happy for that. And like any new skill, it takes time and practice to hone these skills. So I'm just like, okay, I might lose myself and go into presentation mode 99% of the time. However, at least if I'm aware of it, that's an improvement. And maybe in 6 months' time, I may have graduated up to, say, 95% of the time. And that's huge. I suspect it's going to be a lot quicker than that because I kind of know, I know what I need to do now. So it's just doing it and being it, and daily keep up the daily practice of, and just reminding myself. So as a result of sort of having this awareness, I guess I've been quite hesitant in jumping online and doing things like my Facebook Lives in this group. And I've known this is coming. It's like, well, I've got to get back into this. So here I am. And wanting to be doing this from a far more present place as opposed to presentation mode. So I've just come out of doing some embodiment practices, some meditation practices, and other things that I do, like occasionally I light candles to set the intention to bring me back to the presence of, well, what is it here? And yes, I'm presenting in terms of what I'm doing, but I'm not right now going into presentation mode. I'm maintaining my presence as I'm speaking. I was actually on a call earlier today with a lady, and we're talking about body wisdom and tapping into the head, heart and guts, the 3 brain centers and the wisdom centers, I like to call them. And I was explaining to her this, being more present and centered and grounded. And one thing that I've noticed is that my voice, and you may have picked up on it, is sounding different to other times that I would speak. And so the voice is a massive indicator as to whether or not someone is coming from a place of presence or whether they're coming from presentation mode. And I've been observing that in myself. So I'm very happy that right now I'm coming from that present. Although I did just flip then. You may be able to pick it. You may be able to pick it yourself. So yes, they're sort of the reasons, the excuses as to why I haven't been on as much. It's just sort of been feeling out this new space for myself and how I want to do it. It's interesting because I do things like my Waking Women's collective gathering and full moon ceremonies online, presenting using Zoom. And it's interesting because when I do those, there's strong intention that I connect in with when I hold the space for those, which again just assists in remaining in that present position. And the thing is, I didn't actually even realize that what I was doing is bringing myself to presence to hold that grounded, powerful position in running those. So I guess now what I'm looking at doing is being aware of it and then bringing that to more aspects of just where I show up every day in life. Where can I be more present? And just noticing when I flip out into presentation mode. So, and not beating myself up about that, just acknowledging that that's just a learned behavior that I have been doing all my life effectively, and it's only sort of last few years that I've built up awareness that there's things like consciously being in my body, feeling where I'm coming from in my body when I'm speaking. So that's been really cool. Alright, I think that's enough for today, and thank you for listening. It's nice being back here in this space again, coming from a more present position. So with heart and soul, have a great afternoon.